The Galactic Intelligence Certification Center wasn't just a testing facility. It was a monument to intellectual superiority, a temple where species across the cosmos came to prove they weren't just sentient, but actually smart enough to matter. The building itself was a crystalline structure that hummed with what the brochure called concentrated cognitive energy, but what was really just overworked air conditioning, trying to accommodate 300 different atmospheric preferences. Marcus Webb walked in 17 minutes late, holding a coffee that had gone cold somewhere between the shuttle dock and the security checkpoint. Name? The receptionist, a blob of sentient bureaucracy named Glorm, didn't even look up. Marcus Webb, human, Earth. I'm here for the certification thing. Glorm's eye stalks finally rose. The test started 17 minutes ago. Yeah, traffic was crazy. You guys really need better signage in the parking structure. I ended up in the livestock level. Did you know someone brought a space cow to this thing? That was a Bovarian delegate, Glorm said flatly. They are the space cow. Oh. Marcus took a sip of his cold coffee. Well, that's embarrassing. Are they testing too? No, they're here for the cafeteria inspection. Testing hall is through those doors. You'll be in pod 7. And human, one warning. Follow the proctor's instructions exactly. Marcus gave a thumbs up and walked through, headphones already going in. Glorm made a note in their log. Another human. Why did humans always show up to intelligence tests looking like they'd just rolled out of bed and fought a laundry basket? Pod 7 was a circular room with floating chairs arranged around a central holographic display. Marcus was the last to arrive. The other test takers looked like they'd been preparing for this moment their entire lives. Probably because they had. Chick-Tell, an insectoid creature with too many eyes and not enough confidence, had 3 different reference tablets arranged in front of him and was already sweating some kind of nervous pheromone that smelled like burnt rubber. Prism, a being made entirely of luminescent crystal, sat perfectly still, refracting light in a way that screamed, "I'm better than you and I know it." Gormuth, a slug-like creature the size of a beanbag chair, had actual printed notes. In space. In the year 2847. The mad lad had gone old school. At the center of it all stood Instructor Velthar, and Velthar was intense. 4 arms each holding a different pointer stick, a body that looked like someone had asked an octopus to cosplay as a professor, and an expression that suggested he took testing protocols more seriously than most species took their religions. "Welcome," Velthar announced, his voice carrying the weight of someone who definitely practiced this speech in the mirror, "to the Galactic Intelligence Certification Exam. You are here because your species believes you represent the best of your cognitive capabilities. Some of you will prove them right. Most of you will prove them optimistic." Chick-Tell's mandibles clicked nervously. "The test consists of 60 questions," Velthar continued, now pacing with all 4 pointer sticks moving in synchronized patterns that was frankly showing off. Questions 1 through 59 will determine your certification level. Question 60 is theoretical, a philosophical exercise. It exists to humble you. It exists to remind you that intelligence has limits. He paused for dramatic effect. Someone had definitely told him he was good at dramatic pauses. Questions 61 onwards do not officially exist. They are proof of concepts. Mathematical nightmares, cognitive hazards. They were created by our finest minds as thought experiments, and several of those minds are now in very comfortable therapy facilities. You will not attempt them. You cannot attempt them. They are not meant to be solved. They are meant to break you. Am I clear? Everyone nodded except Marcus, who was trying to get his stylus to work on the holographic interface. "Is this thing pressure-sensitive, or what?" Marcus muttered, tapping the screen. "Human." Velthar's 4 eyes focused on him like targeting lasers. "Did you hear anything I just said?" Oh yeah, totally. Don't go past question 60. Got it. Not don't go past. Don't attempt. Question 60 is the wall. You will hit it, and you will stop." "Sure thing, Teach." Marcus finally got his stylus calibrated and pulled up the first question. Velthar's left eye twitched. He'd been an educator for 40 years and had developed a 6th sense for students who were going to be problems. This human-radiated problem energy, like a neutron star, radiated radiation. "You may begin," Velthar announced. "You have 8 hours." The room fell silent, except for the soft hum of holographic interfaces and Chicktel's anxiety pheromones reaching new aromatic heights. Marcus cracked his knuckles, took another sip of terrible coffee, and started reading Question 1. Question 1 was about quantum entanglement paradoxes in non-Euclidean spaces. Marcus finished it in 45 seconds. Velthar, monitoring from his central podium, noticed, but assumed, the human was just skipping it. Humans were known for their overconfidence. This one would probably attempt 5 questions, realize he was out of his depth, and spend the remaining 7 hours and 55 minutes pretending to work while actually napping. Question 2 was about translating emotional wavelengths into mathematical expressions that could predict societal collapse. Marcus took a full 2 minutes on that one. He had to think about whether anxiety was better expressed as a sine wave or a logarithmic spiral. He went with spiral, more accurate. By minute 10, Marcus was on question 15. By minute 20, he was on question 47. Prism, still carefully deliberating on question 3, noticed Marcus' screen in his peripheral refraction and assumed the human was having some kind of mental breakdown, just rapidly clicking through questions in a panic response. Gormath was still reading the instructions. Chicktel had gotten stuck on question 8 and was now Googling, "Is it okay to cry during an intelligence test?" on a hidden tablet. And Velthar, watching the metrics, saw that Marcus Webb from Earth had just submitted question 59. All correct. Not just correct, better than correct. The solutions were more elegant than the official answer key. Question 32, which was supposed to take 40 minutes of calculation, had been solved using a shortcut that wasn't even in the official mathematical canon yet. Velthar's 4 hands gripped his podium. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no. He's not supposed to be there yet." On his screen, Marcus Webb hit question 60. The forbidden one. The one that had made Professor Kelvorn weep openly at an academic conference. Marcus read it, scratched his chin, took another sip of coffee, and started writing. 30 seconds later, he hit submit. Correct. And then Marcus Webb, that absolute lunatic, clicked next. Velthar's species didn't technically have blood pressure, but if they did, his would have been what medical professionals call yikes. "Pip," he hissed to his assistant, a floating orb that handled technical issues. "Pip, get over here." The orb bobbed over, its single eye focusing on Velthar's screen. Oh no. Instructor, is that human on question 61? Yes, but that's impossible. The system isn't even designed to grade past question 60. Those questions exist in the database under the file name "Do Not Open Cosmic Horror Inside." I'm aware of what they're filed under, Pip. I created that filing system. On the screen, Marcus had already submitted question 61. The system, having what could only be described as a software panic attack, took a full 10 seconds to process the answer. Correct. Marcus was now on question 62. Across the room, Prism had finally moved on to question 4 and was feeling pretty good about himself. That feeling lasted until he noticed the alarm lights starting to pulse softly around Velthar's podium. "Instructor?" Prism's crystalline voice chimed like expensive wind chimes. "Is there a problem?" "No," Velthar lied, all 4 of his eyes twitching independently. "Everything is fine. Focus on your test. It's just that you're making a noise like a distressed water pipe, and your chromatophores are cycling through what I believe humans call the panic rainbow. Focus on your test." Prism, offended, returned to question 4. But the seed of curiosity had been planted. He angled his crystalline structure just right to catch the reflection of Marcus's screen. Question 73. "What?" "Prism, eyes on your own work. That human is on question 73. He's been here for 20 minutes. Chicktel's antennae shot straight up. "That's impossible. I've been on question 8 for 15 minutes. Question 8 is hard. It's about predicting economic collapse using butterfly migration patterns." "Question 8 is baby stuff," Marcus called out, not looking up from question 75. The butterflies are a red herring. It's actually about trade route inefficiencies. The butterflies are just vibing. How can you hear us? Chicktel's voice hit a pitch that only dogs and dolphins could fully appreciate. You have headphones in. They're not on. They're just there so people don't talk to me. Usually works great. Velthar slammed one of his hands on the podium. Human! Marcus Webb, I need you to stop! Marcus looked up, stylus hovering over question 76. Stop? Why? Did I do something wrong? You're on question 76. Yeah, these are pretty fun, actually. Question 69 was nice. Question 69 was written by a mathematician who subsequently retired to become a farmer because they said, and I quote, dirt makes more sense than numbers now. Really? It wasn't that bad. Just some multi-dimensional calculus with a twist of existential dread. I've seen worse in YouTube comment sections. Pip floated closer to Velthar. Should I call the senior faculty? No, absolutely not. We're not making a scene. This is probably just a fluke. He's probably just guessing and getting lucky. Sir, I'm monitoring his work. He's not guessing. On question 74, he drew a little smiley face and somehow that was mathematically valid. The system is having an identity crisis. Marcus submitted question 78. The testing facility's emergency protocols activated. Not the fire alarm, not the evacuation system. The academic emergency protocols. The ones reserved for situations like student accidentally created sentient AI or someone divided by zero and it worked. Red lights began pulsing in the faculty corridor. In the staff room, Professor Kelvorn, who was enjoying a nice cup of fermented plankton, watched as his pager started screaming, literally screaming. It had been modified to do that for serious situations. Oh, for the love of entropy, Kelvorn muttered, his reptilian features creasing with annoyance. Someone better be dying or discovering a new mathematical principle. He shuffled toward the testing wing, his tail dragging behind him. He'd been teaching for 200 years and had seen every kind of academic disaster. Student possessed by knowledge demon, handled it. Calculator gained sentience and refused to do math anymore. Talked it down. Human passing question 60? Wait. He burst into the monitoring room where Velthar and Pip were staring at screens like they'd just witnessed the heat death of the universe. What's the emergency? Velthar pointed wordlessly at Marcus's screen. Question 82. That's not possible, Kelvorn whispered. Question 82 isn't even a question. It's a PTSD trigger. I know. I was there when Dr. Quentha wrote it. They cried for 3 days afterward and kept muttering about shapes that shouldn't exist. I know. They watched as Marcus read question 82, which was less a question and more a mathematical war crime. It involved proving that certain geometric shapes could exist in negative dimensions, while also not existing at all, and also explain why that made you feel sad. Marcus wrote, the shapes exist in the emotional space between understanding and acceptance. They make you sad because you recognize them but can't hold them. Like trying to hug a memory. Math-wise, it's just complex plane manipulation with extra depression. Here's the proof. He drew another smiley face. Correct. Professor Kelvorn sat down heavily. Get Dean Morphix, get Dr. Quentha, get everyone, we're having a code yellow. What's code yellow? Pip asked. In student, too smart for our curriculum. Last code yellow was 60 years ago when that Andromedan student solved question 58 using interpretive dance. What do we do? Kelvorn watched as Marcus moved on to question 83, humming something that sounded like Earth music. We watch, we document, and we pray to whatever cosmic forces are listening that this human doesn't accidentally prove something that unmakes reality. In the testing pod, Gormath finally finished reading the instructions and started question 1. Chicktel was now crying. His species cried a phosphorescent goo. It was getting everywhere. Prism had rage quit question 5 and was filing a formal complaint using his tablet. And Marcus Webb, completely oblivious to the academic apocalypse he was causing, reached question 95 and paused. Not because it was hard, but because the system crashed. The screen went blank. Teach? Marcus raised his hand. I think I broke something. The IT department of the Galactic Intelligence Certification Center was not prepared for this. To be fair, they weren't prepared for most things. The IT department consisted of 3 individuals: Bleep, a technician whose species communicated through electronic pulses; Bloop, who was Bleep's cousin and had the same problem with naming conventions; and Janet, a human woman who had ended up in IT because she once fixed a printer and now everyone assumed she was a wizard. What do you mean the system crashed? Janet was already pulling up diagnostics, her fingers flying across holographic keyboards like she was conducting an orchestra of pure frustration. I mean, a student got to question 95, and the entire testing matrix had what I can only describe as a nervous breakdown. Veltar explained, all 4 of his arms gesturing wildly. The system wasn't designed for anyone to get to question 95. Why would you put questions in the system that the system can't handle? Because no one was supposed to reach them. They're theoretical. They're mathematical fiction. They're the equivalent of putting "Here be dragons" on a map. Well, someone reached the dragons, Bleep pulsed, their lights flashing, and what Janet had learned was their species' version of a panic attack. And the dragons are on fire. The testing matrix is trying to generate question 96, but it can't because question 96 requires calculations that would take our quantum processors 6 years to complete. Janet pulled up Marcus's profile on her screen. Wait, this is a human? We have humans taking the certification now? Yes, and this particular human is apparently trying to speedrun our entire academic framework into obsolescence. In the testing pod, Marcus was getting impatient. He'd finished his coffee, his phone was dead, and he really needed to know what question 96 was. It was like when you're reading a book and someone interrupts you right at the good part. How long is this going to take? He called out. Dean Morphix had arrived, their gelatinous form quivering with what might have been excitement or horror. With gelatinous beings, it was hard to tell. Human, Marcus Webb. Can you explain to me how you've solved 87 questions that were designed to be unsolvable? Marcus shrugged. They weren't that hard. You guys just overthink stuff. Overthink? Professor Kelvorn's tail lashed against the floor. These questions were created by the finest mathematical minds in the galaxy. Yeah, and that's probably the problem. You're all so smart you went in a circle and ended up back at complicated. Question 71? You guys assumed it required 17-dimensional mathematics. It's actually just basic algebra if you tilt your head and squint. Dean Morphix's form rippled. You solved a 17-dimensional quantum paradox with basic algebra? And squinting. The squinting is important. Pip floated closer to Marcus's pod. What about question 82, the one about impossible shapes? Oh, that one was actually kind of sad. But yeah, the shapes exist. They're just shy. They hide in the spaces between dimensions where we're not looking. It's like when you lose your keys. They're somewhere. You're just looking in the wrong dimensional plane. There was a long silence. He solved the impossible shapes problem. Dr. Quentha had arrived, looking like they'd aged 1,000 years in the last 20 minutes. He solved my impossible shapes problem, the one that made me question my entire career, the one that gave me stress dreams about geometry. What method did you use? Dean Morphix asked Marcus. I drew a smiley face. You drew a what? A smiley face, it's a human thing, but like, mathematically, the smiley face represents the acceptance paradox. The curve of the smile is actually the dimensional bridge between existence and void. I just formalized it with numbers afterward. Dr. Quentha sat down on the floor. Just sat right down. Their species didn't usually sit, but extreme circumstances called for extreme postural decisions. The smiley face, they whispered. 40 years. 40 years I spent on that problem. And the solution was a smiley face. To be fair, Marcus added helpfully, it's a very specific smiley face. The proportions matter. You can't just draw any smiley face and break mathematics. Oh, well, that's a relief, Kelvorn said with weaponized sarcasm. For a moment, I thought our entire academic framework was built on us missing something obvious. The system suddenly flickered back to life. Janet had rebooted it, but with a warning. Okay, it's back up, but I've implemented a safety protocol. Every question past 100 now requires manual review before the system accepts the answer. I don't trust our quantum processors not to gain sentience and quit. Marcus's screen lit up with question 96. Finally, he muttered, cracking his knuckles. Question 96 was about proving whether consciousness could be expressed as a mathematical constant and, if so, whether that constant was rational or irrational, and also explain why that was funny. Marcus read it twice. Then he started laughing. Oh, that's good. That's actually really good. Okay, so consciousness is definitely expressible as a constant. Let's call it C for consciousness, or breakfast, depending on how philosophical you're feeling. He started writing, talking to himself as he worked. So C is irrational because consciousness is inherently chaotic, but it's predictably irrational, which makes it kind of rational in its irrationality, which is the joke. The math is funny because it proves we're all predictably unpredictable, which is basically the cosmic punchline to existence. He drew another smiley face, then added the proof. Correct. Dean Morphix made a noise like a balloon deflating in slow motion. He got the joke, Velthar whispered. Question 96 has a joke in it, and he got it. I didn't even know question 96 had a joke, Calivorn admitted. Neither did I, and I helped write it. Marcus was already on question 98. The testing facility's faculty were now gathering in the monitoring room like it was a sporting event. Someone had brought snacks. Professor Linthis from the philosophy department was taking notes. The head of xenobiology was on the phone saying, You have to see this. I'll send you the live feed. Question 100 appeared on Marcus's screen. Oh, this is the big one, Marcus said to himself. The century mark. Let's see what you've got. Question 100 read, Prove or disprove the existence of mathematical concepts that cannot exist. It was a paradox, wrapped in an enigma, deep-fried in impossibility, and served with a side of, This question is designed to make you cry. Marcus thought about it for exactly 15 seconds. Then he wrote, Mathematical concepts that cannot exist do exist, but only in the space where the question assumes they don't. By asking me to prove they don't exist, you've created the framework in which they must exist to be discussed. They're like Schrödinger's equation, except instead of a cat, it's the concept of conceptlessness. The proof is in the asking. Next question. He hit submit. The system took a full 30 seconds to process this. Then, correct. Dr. Quentha started laughing. Not happy laughing. The kind of laughing that happens when your entire worldview shifts and your brain doesn't know how else to process it. He just solved the unsolvable paradox, they said between gasps, by pointing out that asking the question creates its own answer. It's so simple. Why didn't I see it? Because you're too smart, Marcus called out, apparently having excellent hearing. Sometimes being really smart means you look for complicated answers when the simple one was there all along. It's like when you can't find your glasses and they're on your head, except with math. Marcus moved on to question 103. Chicktel had finally reached question 12 and was celebrating like he'd won a marathon. Gormath was still on question 6, but was feeling good about his progress. Prism had officially filed 7 separate complaints and was working on an 8th. And the entire academic faculty of the Galactic Intelligence Certification Center was watching a human from Earth systematically dismantle every assumption they'd ever made about the limits of intelligence. Should we stop him? Pip asked quietly. How? Velthar replied. We can't. He's not breaking any rules. He's just winning at everything, forever. Question 107 appeared. Solve for X where X is the unified theory of everything, and also explain why traffic exists. Marcus actually laughed out loud at that one. Okay, that's just mean. But fine. X equals bureaucracy multiplied by poor city planning, divided by the collective human inability to zipper merge. The unified theory of everything is that everything tends toward chaos unless actively maintained, and traffic is what happens when you give a chaotic species metal boxes and tell them to share space. Traffic exists because humans invented cars before we invented patience. Math attached below. Correct. Dean Morphix looked at the other faculty members. We need to have a serious discussion about our curriculum. You think? Calivorn's sarcasm could have stripped paint. This human just explained the unified theory of everything using traffic as a metaphor, and the system accepted it. Marcus stretched, rolled his shoulders and looked at question 108, then 109, then 110, 111, and then he got to question 112, and stopped. Not because it was too hard, not because he couldn't solve it, but because his coffee was empty, and he really, genuinely, desperately needed to pee. Question 112 sat on Marcus's screen like a digital monument to cosmic hubris. The question itself was 30 lines long and involved proving whether infinity could be organized alphabetically, while simultaneously explaining why prime numbers felt lonely. Marcus stared at it. The entire faculty held their breath, and then Marcus raised his hand. "Hey, where's the bathroom?" The monitoring room erupted. That's why he stopped? Professor Linthus dropped their notepad. Not because the question is impossible, but because of biological necessity? Marcus stood up, stretching. Yeah, I've been here like 40 minutes. Coffee goes through me. Also, you guys have any snacks? I'm thinking a sandwich would be great right about now. Velthar's voice came through the speaker system, all 4 of his vocal cords straining to maintain professional composure. Human, Marcus Webb, you stopped on question 112 for a bathroom break. Well, yeah. I'm not going to solve cosmic mathematical paradoxes while my bladder is doing its own existential crisis. That's just poor test-taking strategy. Is the bathroom down the hall or what? Dean Morphix oozed closer to the microphone. Marcus, do you understand what question 112 is? It's not just a question, it's a mathematical apocalypse. It's been responsible for 3 academic retirements and 1 professor who now lives in a cave and communicates only through interpretive stone arrangements. Okay, but does that professor know where the bathroom is? Because that's really my main concern right now. Pip guided Marcus out of the testing pod and down the hallway. The moment he left, every faculty member rushed to analyze question 112. Look at his work-in-progress notes. Janet pulled up Marcus's scratchwork. He was already halfway through solving it. This section here, where he wrote, infinity is just really committed counting. That's actually a breakthrough approach to infinite set theory. And this part, Dr. Quenta pointed, their hands shaking slightly, where he drew a tiny frowning prime number and wrote, sad because no friends except one and themselves. That's actually a valid emotional mathematical framework for understanding prime distribution. Kelvorn examined the notes with the intensity of an archaeologist discovering a new civilization. He's not solving these questions the way we would. He's not using our mathematical languages or our frameworks. He's creating new ones on the fly. Look, this symbol here, this little squiggle, that doesn't exist in any mathematical notation I know. That's because he invented it, Janet zoomed in. See the footnote? This squiggle means when math gets wiggly. And he created a notation for mathematical uncertainty and just moved on. When math gets wiggly? Hey, it works! The system is accepting it. In the bathroom, Marcus was blissfully unaware of the academic chaos he'd caused. He washed his hands, checked his phone, which was still dead, and wondered if he should have studied more for this test. It seemed pretty important based on all the alarm lights. When he returned to the testing pod, the entire senior faculty was waiting for him. Marcus! Dean Morphix began, their gelatinous form practically vibrating with suppressed emotion. We need to ask you something. How are you solving these questions? Marcus sat back down at his terminal. I just think about them. Why, is there a specific method I'm supposed to use? The instructions didn't really specify. The instructions didn't specify because we assumed no one would get this far, Velthar explained. These questions, everything past 60, they're not meant to be solved. They're thought experiments, mathematical nightmares, academic horror stories we tell to scare graduate students. Huh. Marcus pulled up question 112 again. They don't seem that scary. This one's actually kind of cute. The prime numbers being lonely is sad, but relatable. We've all felt like prime numbers sometimes. Have we, though? Prism's voice came from his testing pod, dripping with crystal-refracted disdain. Have we all felt like prime numbers? Or is that just a human thing where you anthropomorphize literally everything, including mathematical concepts? Definitely a human thing, Marcus agreed cheerfully. But it helps. If you think of prime numbers as lonely, You start to understand their distribution pattern differently. They're not random, they're just socially anxious. They keep their distance from other numbers. Math is easier when you give it feelings. Dr. Quentha made a noise like a tea kettle achieving sentience. Math is easier when you give it feelings. 40 years of rigorous academic study, and the solution to understanding prime distribution is empathy? I mean, kind of. Look, your species, all of you, you're approaching these questions like they're enemies to be defeated. But they're just puzzles. They want to be solved. You've got to be nice to them. Be nice to the math. Professor Linthus was writing frantically now. This is revolutionary. This is insane. This is both. Marcus shrugged and returned to question 112. Okay, so infinity organized alphabetically. The trick here is realizing that infinity doesn't care about our organizational systems. But if we pretend it does, we can create a framework where infinite sets can be categorized by their conceptual starting points. So, infinity type A starts at apples, infinity type B starts at bananas, and so on. They're all the same size of infinity, but we've given them names, which makes them easier to work with. He wrote for another 3 minutes, explaining how prime numbers felt lonely because they were only divisible by themselves, and one, which was like going through life only being truly understood by yourself and your mom. The math worked out. The emotional framework actually helped explain the distribution patterns. He drew a little prime number with a sad face, then a happy composite number with lots of factors as friends. Correct. He did it, Pip whispered. He solved question 112 using mathematical empathy and stick-figure emotions. Marcus moved to question 113. Stop! Dean Morphix commanded. Please, just for a moment, stop. We need to understand. Your species hasn't even discovered half the mathematical principles these questions are based on. Earth mathematics is, no offense, relatively primitive compared to galactic standards. How are you doing this? Marcus thought about it. I mean, yeah, we don't know all your fancy math languages. But that's probably why I can solve these. I'm not limited by knowing the right way to do things. When you guys see question 89, you immediately think this requires 7-dimensional mathematics because that's the framework we've always used. But what if it doesn't? What if there's a simpler way? There is no simpler way, Kellevorn insisted. 7-dimensional mathematics is the only way to approach quantum-dimensional paradoxes. Or, Marcus countered, it's just 3 dimensions being really stubborn and weird. Look, humans are really good at making stuff up. It's like our main thing. We don't have 7-dimensional math, so when I see a problem that you think requires it, I don't know, make something up that works. And usually it does because math is actually pretty flexible once you stop being scared of it. Stop being scared of it? Yeah, you guys treat math like it's this scary perfect thing that will punish you if you get it wrong, but math is just a language. It's how the universe talks to itself. And the universe has a sense of humor. Question 96 proved that. The whole consciousness constant joke, the universe is funny, you've just been too serious to notice. Dr. Quentha stood up. I need to leave. I need to go home and rethink my entire career. This human just told me math has a sense of humor and I believe him. It does, though, Marcus called after them. Why else would pi be infinite? That's clearly a cosmic joke. Hey, want to know the ratio of a circle? Too bad, it never ends. Good luck with that. Classic universe humor. Question 115 appeared on his screen. Oh, this one's about tesseracts. I love tesseracts. They're like cubes that went to college and got really pretentious about it. He started solving it, humming to himself. The faculty watched in silent horror and amazement as Marcus Webb, armed with nothing but coffee-fueled audacity and a complete lack of respect for mathematical authority, continued to dismantle questions that had been specifically designed to be impossible. We're going to have to rewrite the entire certification system, Dean Morphix said quietly. This human just proved that everything we thought we knew about intelligence testing is based on the assumption that everyone would approach problems the way we do. He's not smarter than us, Velthar said slowly, realization dawning. He's just different. His species thinks sideways. They don't have our frameworks, so they make up new ones. And because they don't know what's supposed to be impossible, they do it. Marcus finished question 115 and moved to 116. In his testing pod, Gormuth finally completed question 8 and took a celebratory nap. Chigtel had reached question 15 and was considering it a personal victory worth commemorating with a statue. Prism had given up entirely and was now just watching Marcus's screen in horrified fascination, filing mental complaints. And Marcus Webb, completely oblivious to the philosophical crisis he'd triggered, continued solving impossible questions with nothing more than creativity, audacity, and an impressive disregard for the phrase, "That's not how math works." Question 119, he muttered. Okay, this is a weird one. Why is there always one weird one? He started writing. The universe, somewhere, was definitely laughing. By the time Marcus reached question 124, 3 things had happened. First, the Galactic Academic Council had been emergency convened and was currently in a video conference call that had devolved into several distinguished professors arguing in 6 different languages about whether they needed to recalibrate the entire concept of intelligence. Second, news of Marcus's test-taking rampage had spread to other departments. The Xenoanthropology wing was having a field day. The philosophy department was having an existential crisis. The engineering students had started a betting pool on which question would finally stop him. Third, someone had ordered pizza to the monitoring room. Janet had suggested it. And now half the faculty was stress-eating while watching Marcus systematically dismantle their life's work with the casual confidence of someone solving a crossword puzzle on the toilet. Question 124, Marcus read aloud. Because he'd started narrating when he realized he had an audience through the monitoring cameras. Asks me to prove whether abstract concepts can have mathematical weight, and if so, whether love is heavier than fear. That's not even math at that point. That's philosophy trying to sneak into math class wearing a fake mustache. He thought about it for exactly 45 seconds. Okay, so abstract concepts do have mathematical weight, but it's measured in impact rather than mass. Love is heavier than fear because love compounds over time while fear diminishes with exposure. Love has a cumulative formula. Fear has a decay rate. Here's the proof using emotional calculus, which I just invented. You're welcome. He drew a little heart, then a little scared face, then showed the heart getting bigger over time while the scared face got smaller. Correct. He invented emotional calculus, Professor Linthis shrieked, dropping their pizza slice. He just invented an entire new branch of mathematics to solve one question. Is that allowed? Velthar asked weakly. I mean, he's not breaking any rules. Janet pulled up the testing regulations. Nowhere does it say you can't invent new mathematical frameworks during the test. That's because we assumed people would use existing frameworks. Well, that's on us for assuming. Marcus stretched, yawned, and pulled up question 127. Oh good, we're back to regular impossible math. This one's about creating a mathematical model for chaos that isn't chaotic. That's like asking me to make water that isn't wet. But okay, challenge accepted. Dean Morphix had stopped trying to maintain their professional composure and was now just openly vibrating with academic distress. How is he not tired? How is he not breaking? These questions are designed to be mentally exhausting. They should be giving him a migraine at minimum. Maybe human brains work differently, Pip suggested. Their neural structure is optimized for pattern recognition and creative problem solving. They're persistently curious, almost pathologically so. Where other species see a wall, humans see a challenge. Where we see impossible, they see, hold my beer. What's a beer? Velthar asked. It's a human beverage that apparently makes them more confident about bad decisions. That explains so much about their species. Marcus finished question 127 using what he called organized chaos theory, which was essentially creating a framework where chaos followed predictable patterns by establishing boundaries within which the chaos could exist freely. The system accepted it, probably because even the testing computer had given up trying to argue with him. Question 130 appeared. Okay, this is interesting, Marcus leaned forward. This one's asking me to prove whether mathematics discovered or invented. That's the big philosophical question. Math people argue about this at parties, I assume. I've never been to a math party. Are they fun? They're mostly arguing in sad whine, Kelvorn admitted. Figured. Marcus started writing. So here's the thing. Math is both discovered and invented. The relationships exist naturally, like pi and gravity and stuff. That's discovered. But the notation, the way we express those relationships, that's invented. It's like the sunset exists, but the word sunset is something we made up to point at it. Math is the universe's language, and we're just learning to speak it, badly, with a terrible accent. He drew a little alien trying to speak Earth languages with a speech bubble saying, "Human words hard." Correct. The testing system just accepted a stick-figure alien as part of a mathematical proof, Pip observed. I think the system has given up. I think we've broken its spirit. Marcus moved through questions 131 through 135. With the kind of casual efficiency that would have been impressive if it wasn't so deeply threatening to everyone's sense of academic achievement. Question 136 asked him to create a mathematical framework for measuring the passage of time in a universe where time didn't exist linearly. He called it wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey math, and cited an Earth show called Doctor Who as prior art correct. Dr. Quentha, who had returned from their crisis breakdowns, stared at the screen. He cited a television show as mathematical prior art, and it worked. To be fair, Janet pulled up the reference. Doctor Who has been accidentally correct about several astrophysics concepts. The show's writers just guess wildly and sometimes hit real science. That's not how science is supposed to work, and yet, question 140 appeared. It was about proving whether free will could exist in a deterministic universe and expressing the answer as a mathematical constant. Marcus read it and grinned. Oh, you guys are just messing with me now. This is philosophy homework, but fine. He wrote, free will exists in the space between cause and effect, in the decision-making process itself. It's not about whether the outcome was determinable, it's about whether the process of determining it involved choice. The constant is approximately 1.618, the golden ratio, because free will is really just the universe trying to find the most aesthetically pleasing outcome, and the golden ratio is the universe's favorite number. It shows up everywhere. The universe is basically running on vibes and this ratio. He drew a spiral, because golden ratios make spirals, and spirals are cool. Correct. He just solved the free will problem using the golden ratio and vibes. Kelvorn's tail was now just dragging limply behind him in defeat. The universe is running on vibes. I mean, he's not wrong, Professor Linthus said thoughtfully. The golden ratio does appear suspiciously often in nature. Maybe the universe does have aesthetic preferences. We can't just anthropomorphize the universe. Why not? This human has been anthropomorphizing math for 2 hours, and it's working great for him. Marcus worked through questions 141 through 148, inventing new mathematical notations, drawing increasingly elaborate stick figures, and at one point using a meme format to explain quantum superposition. The testing system accepted all of it. He was now approaching question 150. Should we stop him? Dean Morphix asked. Is there even a question 150? There is, Velthar checked the database. It's the last question, the final question, the one we created as the ultimate thought experiment, the question that's supposed to be fundamentally, completely, absolutely impossible. What does it ask? It asks the test-taker to prove their own existence mathematically, while simultaneously proving that mathematics itself is valid without using mathematics to do so. Everyone stared at the screen. That's not a question, Janet said slowly. That's a logic trap, a mathematical Ouroboros. It's designed to be paradoxical. Exactly. It's the question equivalent of, this statement is false, there is no answer. Marcus pulled up question 150, read it, smiled, and started writing. I exist because I'm asking this question. Descartes called it, I think therefore I am. But let's math it up. My existence is proven by my ability to interact with this test, which creates a measurable effect, this typed answer. That's empirical proof of existence. As for mathematics being valid without using math to prove it, math is just the language of patterns. Patterns exist regardless of whether we have math to describe them. A honeycomb is hexagonal whether bees know geometry or not. Math is valid because the universe consistently follows rules, and math is just us pointing at those rules and going, hey, that's neat, let's write it down. The proof is in the pudding, and the pudding is reality, and reality is demonstrably mathematical, even when we're not looking. QED, which stands for quite easily done. He drew himself, giving a thumbs up. Correct. The monitoring room fell silent. He did it, Pip whispered. He solved the unsolvable question, using Descartes and B-facts. QED doesn't stand for quite easily done, Velthar said weakly. It does now, Marcus called out cheerfully. I'm declaring it. Mathematical reformation. QED is now quite easily done. It's more encouraging that way. He hit submit on question 150 and leaned back in his chair. Okay, that was fun. Is there a question 151, or are we done, because I'm getting hungry again? Does your cafeteria have nachos? I could really go for some nachos. Every faculty member looked at each other. Their entire academic framework had just been speedrun by a human who was now asking about nachos. We need to have a very serious conversation about your results, Dean Morphix said through the intercom. Did I pass? 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 You didn't pass. You lapped the test twice and then made it question its own existence. So is that a yes or? The emergency meeting of the Galactic Academic Council had been going for 3 hours and had so far accomplished nothing except giving everyone headaches. Well, headaches, sensory organ aches, or consciousness discomfort, depending on the species. We cannot certify this human, Council Member Zorthax insisted, their scales rattling with agitation. He broke our testing system. Broke it. We had to reboot it 7 times. We also cannot not certify him, Council Member Felixira countered. He solved 150 questions. 150. Questions that we specifically designed to be unsolvable. If we don't certify him, we're admitting our entire testing framework is meaningless. Our entire testing framework is meaningless, Dr. Quentha said from the corner, where they'd been stress-eating alien cookies for the past hour. I've dedicated my life to creating impossible questions, and this human solved them using stick figures and feelings. My career is a joke. Math has feelings now. I need therapy. Dean Morphix rippled forward. The issue isn't whether Marcus Webb is intelligent. He clearly is. The issue is that he's intelligent in a way we didn't design our system to measure. He's not smarter than us. He's different than us. And our tests are built on the assumption that intelligence follows certain patterns. Human intelligence doesn't follow patterns, Janet added, pulling up data on her tablet. It makes patterns. That's the whole thing with humans. They're creative problem solvers who don't respect boundaries. You tell them something is impossible and they take that as a challenge. So what do we do? Velthar asked, still looking traumatized from watching his life's work get speedrun. We can't just let him leave without some kind of certification. But our certification levels are novice, competent, advanced, and master. He doesn't fit any of those. We need a new tier, Professor Kelvorn suggested. Something that acknowledges what he did without destroying our entire system. What would we even call it? Janet looked at her tablet, then at Marcus's test results, then at the multiple incident reports about system crashes and the new mathematical frameworks he'd invented. Cognitively hazardous. Everyone turned to stare at her. Think about it, she continued. He's brilliant, but he's also dangerous to established academic frameworks. He's like a walking, talking paradigm shift. Cognitively hazardous warns people that interacting with his work might fundamentally change how they think about thinking. There was a long pause. That's actually perfect, Dean Morphix admitted. It's a certification that says, this entity is incredibly intelligent, but also might accidentally overthrow your entire field of study. Do we tell him it's a warning label? Pip asked. Absolutely not. Meanwhile, in the testing hall, Marcus had finally reconnected with the other test takers. Chicktel had finished the test with a score of 22 out of 60 and was celebrating like he'd won a galactic championship. For him, he basically had. Question 22 was about his species' comfort zone. 22 questions! Chicktel buzzed happily. That's enough for basic certification. I can go home and tell my brood mother I'm officially certified as competent. She'll be so proud. How did you do? Pretty good, Marcus said. Got through a bunch of questions. Lost track of the number, honestly. Gormath had managed to complete 18 questions and was feeling philosophical about it. 18 is a good number, divisible by many things. I am at peace with 18. Prism, who had finished 38 questions before rage quitting, was less at peace. You got through a bunch? I saw your screen. You were in the hundreds. The questions aren't supposed to go that high. They're more like suggestions anyway. Marcus shrugged. Hey, do you guys want to grab food? I'm starving. How are you hungry? How are you not traumatized? Why would I be traumatized? It was just a test. Kind of a fun test, actually. Some of those questions were really creative. Prism's crystalline structure literally vibrated with outrage. Creative? Question 60 made me question my entire existence. Question 43 made me cry light-based tears. You're telling me you found them fun? Different species, different perspectives, Marcus said cheerfully. That's what makes the galaxy interesting, right? The door opened and Velthar emerged, looking like he'd aged a century in the past 3 hours. Behind him was Dean Morphix, Professor Kelvorn, Dr. Quentha, and most of the senior faculty. Marcus Webb, Velthar began formally. We've reviewed your test results. Cool. Did I pass? You didn't pass exactly. Marcus's face fell. Oh, damn, did I fail? I thought I did pretty well. No, you didn't fail either. You've confused us. You've confused us so much that we had to create an entirely new certification tier. A new tier? Dean Morphix oozed forward, holding a holographic certificate. Marcus Webb, by the authority of the Galactic Academic Council, we hereby certify you as cognitively hazardous. Cognitively hazardous, Marcus repeated. Is that good? It's the highest tier, above Master. You're the first being to ever receive it. Oh, sick. Marcus took the certificate. My mom is going to be so proud. She always said I was special. Wait, why is it the highest tier? Because, Velthar explained carefully, you didn't just pass our test. You fundamentally challenged every assumption we made about intelligence, problem-solving, and the nature of mathematics itself. You invented 3 new branches of mathematics during a standardized test. You used stick figures as valid mathematical proofs. You made question 96 funny. It was funny, though. We didn't know it was funny until you explained it. Chicktel clicked forward nervously. So, wait, he got a higher score than all of us? He got a higher score than anyone, Professor Kelvorn said. In the history of this test, spanning 4,000 years across 800 species, no one has even attempted question 80. Marcus solved 150. 151, technically, Marcus corrected. There was that bonus essay question at the end about optimal food combinations. I wrote about why pineapple on pizza is mathematically sound. Every single alien made a noise of distress. The optional essay? Pip floated forward in shock. The essay that's been on the test for 60 years and no one has ever completed because they're too exhausted by question 60? Yeah, it was right there at the bottom. Figured I'd answer it. Had some good points about flavor distribution and textural contrast ratios. Dr. Quentha pulled up the essay on their tablet and started reading. Their expression went through several emotions: confusion, horror, understanding, and finally reluctant acceptance. It's actually mathematically sound. The acidic sweetness of pineapple creates a balanced flavor equation with the savory umami of cheese and tomato. He proved it using graph theory and taste bud distribution patterns. I cited a pizza place in Chicago, Marcus added helpfully. He cited a pizzeria in an academic essay. It was good pizza. They knew what they were doing. The essay, despite being completely unhinged, was academically rigorous enough that the system had accepted it. It was already being shared among the faculty. Within an hour, it would spark 3 separate academic debates and cause 2 food science departments to completely reevaluate their stance on controversial pizza toppings. Can I ask a question? Marcus raised his hand. Is there an advanced version of this test? because some of those later questions were getting interesting, and I kind of want to see where they go. Every faculty member simultaneously took a step backward. No, Velthar said firmly. Absolutely not. You are done. You are finished. You have completed testing forever. There is no advanced test, Dean Morphix added. This was the advanced test. This was the ultimate test. You broke it. You win. You're done. We're updating the testing guidelines, Professor Kelvorn said, already typing on his tablet. New rule, if you're human, please just don't. Just don't take this test. We'll certify you based on a strongly worded letter of recommendation. We'll take your word for it, whatever you need. Just please don't do this again. That seems discriminatory, Marcus pointed out. It's not discrimination, it's survival. Our academic framework cannot handle another human like you. Marcus shrugged. Fair enough. So, nachos? As Marcus left with the other test takers to find the cafeteria, the faculty remained in stunned silence. We need to completely redesign our curriculum, Dean Morphix said quietly. We need to completely redesign our understanding of intelligence, Velthar corrected. We need to completely redesign our career choices, Dr. Quentha added. I'm thinking of opening a bakery. Bread doesn't question your fundamental understanding of mathematics. Pip floated over to the main console and started compiling the final report. For what it's worth, I think this was good for us. We got complacent. We assumed our way was the only way. Marcus proved that intelligence comes in different forms. Different forms, Kelvorn muttered. The human form apparently involves drawing smiley faces and citing pizza restaurants. And yet it works. And yet it works, Kelvorn agreed reluctantly. The Galactic Academic Council would spend the next 6 months revising their testing protocols. They would add warnings. They would create new certification tiers. They would fundamentally reconsider their approach to measuring intelligence. And Marcus Webb's Pineapple Pizza essay would go on to be published in the Journal of Interdimensional Food Science, sparking a renaissance in culinary mathematics and starting 3 academic wars between departments that previously had peaceful relationships. But that's another story. For now, Marcus was in the cafeteria, eating nachos, completely unaware that he'd just accidentally revolutionized galactic academia. These nachos are pretty good, he said to Chick-Tel, who had become his unlikely friend. Not mathematically optimal, but solid 7 out of 10. Please stop analyzing food mathematically, Chick-Tel buzzed. It's making me nervous. Everything's math if you squint hard enough. That's what I'm afraid of. Somewhere in the administrative offices, Velthar was updating the official warning for future test takers. He typed slowly, each word a small surrender. Questions 1 through 59 for standard certification. Question 60 is theoretical and forbidden. Questions 61 through 150 are cosmic horror and should not be attempted under any circumstances. If you are human, we respectfully request that you just tell us you're smart and we'll believe you. Please, we're tired. He hit save, closed his laptop, and went home to reconsider his life choices. The test, having been thoroughly traumatized by Marcus Webb, would never be quite the same again. And neither would galactic academia. But at least they had nachos.